1974, the US government forced an entire Ohio town to pack up and leave. No warning. Just sealed homes, fences, and the words, "Property of the United States." On paper, it was all about creating a national park, but try asking anyone who grew up there, and you'll hear something very different. Strange lights in the woods, animals that didn't look right, military trucks seen after midnight. Over time, the line between fact and rumour blurred so much that no one could tell which was which. This is Helltown, a place where no one really knows what to believe. It all started with a law that seemed harmless enough. In 1974, President Gerald Ford signed a bill that allowed the federal government to buy up large areas of land to create national parks. The goal sounded good on paper, to protect nature before it was wiped out by development. But for the people living in Boston, Ohio, that one decision turned their lives upside down. The new law covered about 20,000 acres between Cleveland and Akron. The government said it wanted to create what was called the Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area. Officials began sending letters to families, explaining that their homes would be bought for public use. The word they used was eminent domain. It meant you didn't really have a choice. You had to sell whether you wanted to or not. At first, some people thought it might take years for anything to happen, but within months, federal workers showed up, making offers that weren't up for discussion. Entire families, some who had lived there for generations, had to leave. Once the government bought a property, it wasted no time sealing it off. Houses were boarded up tight, and no trespassing signs appeared overnight. Streets that once led to homes now had barricades and road closed signs. People started calling them roads to nowhere. The town quickly turned quiet. You'd drive past and see entire rows of houses sitting empty, windows covered, some of them half burned from firefighter training drills. It looked frozen in time, like everyone had vanished in a single day. Officials like Superintendent William Birdsall defended the buyout, saying it was for the public good. But the residents didn't see it that way. They felt robbed. Some even called it the death of Boston. The government had planned to tear the houses down quickly, but that never really happened. Instead, the buildings just sat there, rotting away, one by one. But while everything else was falling apart, two buildings seemed untouched, and locals swore they weren't empty. After the last families packed up and left, the town didn't just go quiet, it got weird. A lot of the stories that came next focused on two old churches still standing there, Boston Community Church and Mother of Sorrows. Locals said these weren't just empty buildings anymore. They said something darker was going on inside them. One of the people who decided to check it out for himself was an explorer named Jim Mueller. He'd heard the stories about the candles flickering in the windows at night, and how the Boston Community Church never seemed to hold mass.
And candles in the windows. It's also been known to never have mass, no matter what time of day, no matter what day, never has mass. But
Jim also talked about the rumour about an evil man in the basement of the church.
Is known for having a man in the basement. I believe a couple or some friends or whatever were walking here one day. They noticed the candles in the window and they got a little closer and they went to one of the windows in the basement and were yelled at to leave. So is there somebody inside? Is it haunted? We don't know. But you can't find this in
The Mother of Sorrows Church had its own strange stories too. People said they saw upside down crosses on the building, and the whole place just felt off. When Jim stopped by, he actually saw them for himself.
Looks like some upside down crosses, doesn't it? There and there on the architecture, doesn't it? But you know what? I love that door though.
The church cemetery made things even creepier. Locals called it the Boston Cemetery, though some used the Latin name Mater Dolorosa, which means Mother of Sorrows. People said the air around it felt heavy and cold even on summer nights. Some claimed they heard whispers or footsteps when no one else was around. One night, a paranormal investigator decided to check it out. He said it wasn't the silence that got to him, but the low growls echoing from the cemetery. After countless eerie reports, word started spreading fast that the town didn't just feel abandoned, it felt evil. Locals began calling it Helltown. At first it sounded like a joke, something people said to poke fun at all the strange stories. But soon the name became the only one anyone used. But the stories didn't end inside the town. They followed the roads that led out of it, especially one stretch people still talk about today. If you follow the road that cuts through what's left of the old town, you'll eventually hit a steep stretch called Stanford Road. Most people around here don't call it that though. They call it the end of the world. People call it that because of how the road is shaped. It climbs uphill and then drops so sharply that, from a distance, it looks like the pavement just cuts off into nothing. Drivers say that for a second, it really feels like you're about to drive right off the planet. Back in the late 70s and 80s, that road became a magnet for thrill seekers. Teenagers would drive out there at night, daring each other to reach the top and shut off their headlights. Some said that if you did it long enough, something strange would happen. The engine would die or the car would start rolling on its own. There were stories about an evil force on the road, something that tried to take control of people's cars and send them crashing into the trees. Other stories took it even further. People said a ghostly man with an axe stalked the road at night, waiting for unlucky drivers. Some claimed to see a group of people in dark robes blocking the way, forming a human chain across the road. If you didn't turn around fast enough, they'd surround your car. Then there's the legend of the hearse, one that author William G. Krejci talks about in his book Ghosts and Legends of Northern Ohio. Locals say if you stay too long near the end of the road, an old half-broken hearse with one working headlight will suddenly appear, driven by a strange man who won't stop until you're gone. Today, the old road is part of a hiking trail, but even during the day, people say it feels heavy, like something's watching. Some hikers claim to hear faint crying near the woods. It's often linked to a nearby bridge, nicknamed Crybaby Bridge. The story says a mother lost her child in the river below, and now you can still hear the baby's wails at night. Others talk about screams coming from deep in the trees, saying they sound like old battle cries, or people calling for help. But go a little farther down that trail, and you'll come across what might be the most talked about part of Helltown. The deeper you walk into those woods, the quieter it gets. No wind, no birds, just that thick silence that makes you feel like something's out there. That's where people used to find it. An old yellow school bus lost in the weeds, paint peeling off, windows cracked, and the inside falling apart with rust. Everyone around Boston Township knew about it. Back in the 1980s, it was the go-to spot for local teens who wanted to prove they weren't scared of anything. You'd hear stories about kids sneaking out at night with flashlights, cutting through trees, and then freezing when that shape appeared in the dark. A school bus just sitting there where no road should lead. People started calling it the murder bus. Some said a killer hijacked it and slaughtered a bunch of kids on board. By the 80s, kids who dared to visit said they saw ghosts sitting inside. They'd look through the cracked windows and swear they saw faces pressed against the glass. Some said they saw a man smoking in the back seat, just watching them. Others said they heard screams or laughter from inside when the wind picked up. I don't know about you, but if I heard that in the dark, I'd be running back to my car too. Then came the stories about the bus moving. Some said one night it was facing one direction, and the next night it had turned. Others claimed someone tried to tow it, and the truck broke down or the driver got hurt. That's when people started saying the bus was cursed. No one could touch it without something bad happening. Eventually, after enough complaints from locals about kids sneaking into the woods, the bus was finally towed away. It was gone before 2016, cleared out along with other abandoned buildings. After the bus was removed, the town itself started to fade even more. The houses that were still standing got boarded up and the roads leading in were sealed off. Some signs were taken down completely. The government said it was for safety reasons that the area had been turned over to the National Park Service. But even after all these years, people still argue that there's more to it than that. And that's when a certain theory started spreading around town. The more people talked, the more it sounded like the whole safety excuse was covering up something far worse. That's how the chemical spill theory took off. People still say the whole thing was a cover-up, not a relocation plan. The theory claims the government found something so dangerous in that area they couldn't risk anyone knowing. Some believe toxic waste was buried there decades earlier, maybe left from a failed industrial project or military testing site. When it started leaking into the ground and nearby creeks, the problem became too big to fix quietly. According to the theory, that's when officials stepped in. Instead of telling people there was contamination, they used the park expansion story to clear the place. Buying out homes and blocking off the roads made it easy to control access. It looked clean on paper. To locals, though, it was obvious something else was going on. There were signs everywhere warning people not to enter, even in areas miles away from any real hazard. And when people tried to ask questions, they were told it was classified or not their concern. Some claim to have seen men in hazmat suits long after the town was empty. Others talk about unmarked trucks arriving at night, going past the barricades, and disappearing into the forest. No one ever explained what they were doing, and there were no public cleanup reports to prove the area was safe. To many, it made perfect sense. The government wasn't cleaning anything. They were hiding it. Rumours also grew about testing labs and chemical storage facilities nearby. People noticed odd readings on Geiger counters and magnetic sensors near the closed-off zones. The air around some parts of the woods was said to have a strange smell, like burnt plastic or fuel. What makes the theory convincing to many people is the silence surrounding it. The government has stayed quiet for decades, removing every trace of the old town and keeping the area sealed off. The fences are still up and access remains restricted even after all these years. The secrecy has never changed, and every attempt to get answers ends the same way, with no response and no clear record of what really happened. It didn't stop at talk of toxic waste. People started connecting the dots in a completely different direction, one that sounded straight out of a horror story. People began saying it was never about a government cover-up. They said Helltown had turned into something unholy. That satanic worship had taken over once the town went quiet. Over time, all the strange things people had been talking about started to get tied to that one idea. People began saying everything happening in and around the town was because of satanic rituals. The odd noises in the woods, the lights in the church windows, and the eerie silence all started to make sense to people, once they connected them to the idea of cult activity. Stories grew fast after that. People said black-robed figures stood across Stamford Road at night, forming a human chain to stop cars from driving through. That same stretch was already known as the end of the world, and now it sounded like the perfect place for something dark to happen. Then came the story about a group of Satanists attacking a school bus full of kids and using it for rituals in the forest. Each new version was worse than the one before. Some even claimed police were warning people not to drive through Boston Township after dark because of cult gatherings. Those warnings were actually meant to keep trespassers away, but no one believed that at the time. Stamford Road, the one people called the end of the world, became a main part of the story. Those who claimed to see dark shapes blocking cars said they weren't just random pranksters. They were performing rituals to protect whatever was happening deeper in the woods. Even that old bus people used to talk about was pulled into it and is now said to be where cults carried out sacrifices. The churches also became part of the story. The old Presbyterian church in town and the Mother of Sorrows in Peninsula were said to be where the rituals happened. People pointed out upside-down crosses on the walls and took them as proof of something evil. That same paranormal researcher who talked about hearing growls in the Boston Cemetery said they later went into the woods at night and saw people in black robes walking around their car, staring in through the windows. One Reddit user shared that their sister's ex and his friends, who liked to scare themselves by exploring creepy places, went out there one night. They said they saw a group of men wearing black cloaks and bird-like masks standing on a small cliff. The group panicked, thinking they had just stumbled onto some kind of satanic ritual, and took off immediately. But those stories weren't happening in isolation. Around that same time, real cases from across Ohio were starting to make people believe something dark really was going on. Ohio already had a few cases that fed into that fear. Like in 1982, 2 people named Cooper and Schultz were murdered in southeastern Ohio, and the crime was blamed on devil worshippers. The satanic rumors were only one part of it. Soon people started whispering about secret experiments and strange creatures in the woods. People started saying that Helltown wasn't cleared out because of a park plan at all. They said it was because of an experiment that went badly and left the area full of mutant creatures. Some say there was a secret chemical plant near the edge of town, the kind that was supposedly doing tests for the military during the Cold War. Others say it was a power plant that leaked something into the ground, something that changed the animals. Either way, the story always ends the same. The government found out, panicked, and forced everyone to leave before anyone noticed what had really happened. When you drive through the area and see all those boarded up houses and warning signs, it's easy to understand why people believed it. The whole place looked like it was quarantined. Folks started calling it Mutant Town, or even Butane Town, saying the name came from the gas that was supposedly spilt there. One place that keeps coming up in the story is the Krejci dump. It had been used since the late 1940s to bury all kinds of industrial waste. When the National Park Service took over the land in the 80s, they thought they were just cleaning up an old junkyard. But park workers started getting sick. Some said they smelled something sharp in the air. Others got rashes and headaches. The Environmental Protection Agency got involved soon after, and what they found was bad. Thousands of barrels filled with chemicals had been dumped underground. Stuff like arsenic, PCBs, dioxins, and heavy metals. The cleanup took years. Over 370,000 tons of soil had to be dug up and removed. Even though that mess was discovered years after the town was emptied, it fueled the idea that the government knew something all along. Some people said the timing was too perfect. First, the residents were forced out in 1974. Then, a few years later, the toxic waste problem showed up right next door. To many, the town was cleared so no one would find out. There's also this bizarre story about something called the Peninsula Python. It's supposed to be a giant snake that grew to a crazy size because of chemical exposure. Some say it's 30 feet long and can swallow a person whole. Others think it's closer to 20 feet, but still huge enough to scare hunters out of the woods. Every few years, someone claims to have seen it slithering near the old landfill. There are also smaller stories about strange animals and people who got sick from whatever leaked out there. One local legend talks about a hiker who found a cabin filled with weird chemical equipment. They say he touched something inside, got sick, and died the next day. Some claim his ghost still walks the woods, half human, half something else. In 2017, Destination America's TV special, Helltown, took all those stories and tied them together into one disturbing narrative about what might have really happened in Boston, Ohio. The show suggested that what happened there was not just a normal town closure, but a mix of government secrets, cult activity, and even supernatural events. The story began in 1974, when the government took over Boston, Ohio, to form a national park. Helltown claimed this was a cover for a chemical spill that caused strange mutations. A man named Everett McMahon, said to be from the Army Signal Corps, claimed he and 2 others were sent to document the evictions, but discovered proof of a cover-up. The program also talked about local legends like the Peninsula Python, the haunted school bus, and the End of the World Road, sometimes called the Highway to Hell. That road name led directly into another theory that grew over time, called the hellgate theory. For those who believe the legends, this explains everything. It said that the town itself sits on something spiritual, maybe even dimensional, like a vortex where strange energy flows in and out. According to believers, it's the reason people get that weird heaviness when they walk through the old roads. They say the place pulls you in, messes with time, and lets spirits or other things slip through. Some claim this energy was disturbed when the government cleared the area in the 1970s, breaking whatever balance once existed there. Others think it has been active far longer, drawing people toward it for centuries. Locals have long told stories of fleeting figures glimpsed at the edges of vision, strange voices in empty buildings, or sudden temperature drops in specific spots. Many insist these are not tricks of the mind, but the result of the town's energy slipping through, letting things from another dimension or plane become visible, even if only for a moment. The old main road that cuts through the centre of town is often called the Highway to Hell by locals, and not without reason. Those who have driven it at night report a creeping sense that the road itself is alive, bending perception and guiding travellers towards something they cannot fully see. People describe a pressure in the chest, a tugging in the gut, and an almost irresistible pull to continue down the route, even when every instinct warns them to turn back. The highway seems to act as a conduit for the town's energy. Vehicles stall for no reason, headlights catch movement at the edge of the road, and radios flicker with static or faint whispers. Some witnesses say time warps along this stretch. A trip that should take minutes feels like hours, or vice versa. Others report seeing shadowy figures walking along the shoulder or standing just off the pavement, only to vanish when approached. Those who research or document the town often note that the phenomena seem to intensify at certain times of day, or in particular weather conditions. Fog, twilight and rain are said to magnify the heaviness and the pull, making it nearly impossible to resist exploring further. But this kind of haunting is not unique to one place. It's not the first time an American town has ended up as a ghost story. When you hear about a place being cursed or abandoned for strange reasons, your mind might jump straight to Helltown. But before that, there was Centralia. Centralia, Pennsylvania was once a quiet mining town. In 1962, a fire started underground and has been burning ever since. Smoke seeps from cracks in the streets, the ground grows hot, and strange sinkholes appear without warning. Most people fled, but a few stayed, drawn to the town despite its dangers. The fire still burns beneath their feet, hiding its full story. I've covered this topic in detail, and I'll add a link at the end for anyone interested in watching. So far we've heard some crazy theories, from government experiments to satanic rituals. But if we step back, many researchers have a different perspective on things. Experts say what happens there might not be about ghosts at all, but about how our brains work when we're scared, or when we expect something strange to happen. Psychologists who study fear and group behaviour have a term for this. They call it mass suggestion. It's when one person says they saw or felt something, and then others start to believe it too, even if nothing actually happened. Kind of like when one person in a crowd says they smell smoke and suddenly everyone starts coughing, the mind fills in the blanks. When you walk through a quiet place like Helltown, your mind starts to play games with you. The houses look stuck in another time. The roads end out of nowhere, and the only sound you hear is your own footsteps. Some psychologists say that kind of silence makes your brain stay on high alert. You start picking up every little sound, a twig snapping, the wind brushing through the trees, even your own breathing starts to feel strange, like something's watching you. But the stories about Helltown aren't just about how our minds work. The town's history adds to the mystery. When people were forced to leave their homes, many buildings were left empty. Some were boarded up and others were burned down during fire training exercises. That made the place look even more deserted and strange. The sight of half-burned houses and empty streets mixed with stories of people being forced out, and before long, rumours started to spread. One of the most talked about places is the Satanic Church. The building has upside-down crosses built into its design, which is a normal feature in Gothic Revival architecture. But some people saw those crosses and thought they were proof of dark rituals. That simple misunderstanding added to the myth that something evil was happening there. Another part of the legend comes from a steep, winding road that people nicknamed the End of the World. Drivers say weird things happen there, but it's actually just a steep, twisting road that makes it look like you're driving straight off a cliff. The angle of the hill plays tricks on your eyes, and some thrill seekers went too far trying to test it. These myths were further propagated by media portrayals. For instance, the Helltown special by Destination America depicted the town as a place of supernatural occurrences. But the truth is that the program was mostly made up. It was designed to entertain, not to document real events. At the end of the special, there was a small disclaimer. It said that any similarities to real people were coincidental, and that many events in the film were fictional. The only real part was that the town was evacuated in the 1970s. It said that what really happened there was much less frightening than what the show suggested, and a few researchers have looked into the truth. One of them was Jim Willis, the founder and director of the Ghosts of Ohio, a well-known paranormal research group that investigates reported hauntings using both science and history. In the summer of 2000, he and his team went through town records and old local stories to see what they could actually prove. They even used ghost hunting tools like electromagnetic readers just to test if anything strange was happening in those old houses. Their final report said there was no proof of a chemical disaster. They believed the rumours started because people were trying to make sense of all the abandoned homes and warning signs left behind. As for the chemical spill theory, When environmental teams finally investigated, they found nothing that matched those claims. The Environmental Protection Agency tested the area in the 1980s, and its reports turned out to be completely ordinary. A few spots showed signs of old waste runoff, mostly from farm chemicals and small factories nearby, but nothing that would explain glowing creatures or secret government cleanup missions. Still, I can see how the rumours made sense to people at the time. When you see government signs warning people to stay out and sealed roads cutting through an empty town, your mind fills in the blanks. A chemical spill feels like a more believable reason than park expansion or old houses. It just sounds like something that would be covered up. So while the environmental data points to normal, trace-level contamination, the story that something more was hiding there has kept people guessing for decades. In the end, Helltown became something much bigger than an empty place that people left behind. It turned into a story people couldn't stop talking about. The government buyouts, the boarded-up homes, the burned houses, and that eerie quiet created the perfect setting for rumours to grow. Over time, those stories mixed with real history until it was hard to tell what actually happened and what people just imagined. And maybe that's the real question that keeps people coming back. Which part was fiction and which part wasn't? Remember that video about Centralia I mentioned earlier? It's right there on your screen. Go ahead and watch it next and see just how close that story comes to this one.